Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I am your host, Eric Smith, and today I am talking about Feeders from Within by Peter J. Evans. This is an Arkham horror novel from Fantasy Flight. It is the second to last one that I have from Fantasy Flight, and then I can start reading all the cool the new Aconite books that they did in Arkham Horror. But today we're talking about Feeders from Within. So in this book, we start with Mark Harrigan. He is a soldier. It's during World War I, but he and his platoon are down in Mexico searching for Pancho Villa, and they run into some unspeakable horrors, and Mark Harrigan and one other guy are the only ones to survive. Then we jump ahead to Carolyn Fern, who is a psychologist, and she is going to Arkham to talk to the head of Arkham Asylum because she had a patient who went to Arkham and then was murdered, and she's afraid that she failed this patient, and so she wants to read his case history. He used to be at Arkham Asylum, and he happens to be the other survivor along with Mark Harrigan. And then we meet, let me check this, Diana Stanley, who is this posh businesswoman, but also a member of the, let me check this, Order of the Silver Twilight, that she thinks is just a social organization, but of course in Lovecraftian terms is a horrible secret cult. She wants out, and some bad things are going to happen to her. These three characters are going to come together and fight a terror in Arkham and in another world. So that's your nutshell. I'm going to say right off the bat, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed this. This is of the Arkham horror novels that were published from Fantasy Flight. I think this is my favorite so far. Although technically, the first 6 were 2 trilogies. This is a standalone. The last one is a standalone. But I really liked this. I liked the way it was written. I liked the use of the characters. And I really liked the story, and you get, the nice thing with these, for me anyway, is you get that creepy Lovecraftian dread along with a little bit more of a modern, sort of violent, gory feel. By the way, that's Amigo, for anyone who doesn't recognize the creature. That is Amigo from, that's how I pronounce it. It's M-I-G-O. There's some interesting stuff on the back. So I really enjoyed the story. We're introduced to these characters. We meet, again, Mark Harrigan first, and we learn about him. We get his experience down in Mexico, and then we get to know Carolyn Fern and her character. And the characters are very well developed. And, we learn what her mission is. And then, I gotta say, Diana Stanley, as written in this book, absolutely my favorite character, especially after certain events happen. There's sort of a shift-ish in her character that I absolutely love the way she is portrayed. So you've got these 3 characters. Again, they come together. They don't necessarily trust each other. They don't even necessarily have the same goals, till eventually they do. And they've got to deal with just the weirdness of Arkham in general, and then you've got the bad guys and the Lovecraftian creatures, the horror and the dread that'll drive you insane, and we've got Miskatonic University and Forbidden Tomes. No Necronomicon in this one. There's some nice cameos. There's a name drop. There's a person that doesn't literally appear, but they do when two characters are talking, this very popular Lovecraft character is mentioned as having, oh, they were here 2 days ago and did something and blah, blah, blah. So that was fun. I really liked that. Not going to say who it is during this video. So yeah, very, very well written. Very interesting story. It kept me going. I was compelled. I liked the characters. I liked the moments of dread. I liked the moments of violence. And as always with these books, you don't have to be familiar at all with the game to enjoy it. If you like Lovecraftian horror, then I recommend these books, and this one, absolutely. I don't know what the availability is. Probably should have checked that before I made this video, but I didn't, because I was doing something else, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I definitely recommend Feeders from Within by Peter J. Evans. It's got your cosmic horror and your Prohibition era bad guys horror and fun characters. And speaking of the characters, I have a little treat for you. Now, I have a bunch of Fantasy Flights games, Arkham games. I have Arkham Horror 3rd Edition. I have Eldritch Horror 1st Edition. I have Elder Sign, and I have Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. I think that's all I have. So, I pulled out some character cards. I have character cards for all three of our main characters. Now, the irony is, none of these are from the Arkham Horror game. 2 are from Eldritch Horror, 1 is from Elder Sign, and I didn't check, since I found them, I didn't have to check Mansions of Madness, so I don't know if they're in there. Because there is a lot of character crossover between all the games. But let's start with our first character. This is Mark Harrigan, the soldier. So there's his picture, and all of this stuff, his health, his sanity, his skills, and then he starts with a revolver and kerosene in Eldritch Horror. And it gives a little bio, which doesn't exactly match what happens in the book. But just for the hell of it, it says, during the war, Mark witnessed horrors he could not explain, and he wrote of what he saw in letters to his beloved wife, Sophie. When Mark returned home, he discovered that Sophie was no longer human. One of the beasts that Mark had seen overseas had taken over her body, killing her in the process. Afterward, Mark's thirst for vengeance led him to Helsinki, where some of the creatures had posed as German soldiers during the Great War. Now, there is Sophie in the book, or at least mentioned in the book, but when he's in Mexico, they are not married. I'm not even sure if they're engaged. He does come back from Mexico, and in the intervening time between the cold open in Mexico and then us being introduced to Carolyn Fern in Arkham, Mark has married Sophie, and things have gone down. He is a widower. So, yeah, that's Mark Harrigan, a character that you can play. Doesn't have a lot of sanity, but he's got a lot of health. And then the next person we're introduced to in the book, and this one is from Elder Sign, and that is Carolyn Fern, the psychologist. She has 6 sanity and only 4 health. So she's a very sane person. And she starts with a common item and an uncommon item, I think. No biography for her, no biography on the Elder Sign characters. Let's see, what does this say? At the start of Carolyn's turn, she may restore 1 sanity to 1 investigator of her choice, including herself, because she's a psychologist. I liked her character in the book well enough. She was interesting. I used to study psychology in college, so I dig that kind of character. And she's following up. She had a patient that left her care and then ends up in Arkham, ends up dead. She's concerned that she has failed, and so she's following up. She takes a sabbatical to find out what happened, find out if she's in any way responsible. And then finally, my favorite character in the book, we have Diane Stanley. She's the most balanced? I don't know. What's interesting, I think, is that in Elder Sign, the stats are divided. You have 10, and they're divided between the two. So 6 and 4, you might have 5 and 5, whatever. Whereas with the Elder Tor, it's divided from 12. So Diana Stanley has 7 health and 5 sanity, and she is this says the redeemed cultist. And her biography says, when Diana was initiated into the Order of Silver Twilight, she believed it to be nothing more than a community organization. But as she has learned more of its true nature, she has become convinced that a growing evil threatens the world and that the Silver Twilight will play a role in that threat. She believes her best chance to prevent this is to use her position to sabotage the organization from within. Carl Sanford, the head of the Order, has recognized her skills and recently sent her to Panama for additional training. Carl Sanford is in the book, but there's no Panama. She is in Arkham the entire time. In the book, she realizes that this is not just a community organization, it is a true cult, and some people have true power, and there is evil and horrible things, and so she is in Arkham basically trying to figure out how to get away with her life, and possibly put a stop to what they're doing. What does she start with? Arcane manuscripts and a spell called Wither. So that's Diana Stanley, my favorite character in the story. So, again, Feeders from Within, Peter J. Evans, really, really entertaining. 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. Some of the ancillary characters have shown up in a bunch of these books, and since Aconite has sort of started fresh, I don't know. I don't remember any crossover characters, but then it's been a while since I've read some of the older ones. I don't remember any crossover characters besides the ancillary characters in these Fantasy Flight books. We'll see what happens with all of the Aconite books when I get to those, if they'll reuse characters that may or may not have survived or died, if there'll be crossover. I know some of the books, some authors have written more than one book, so whether they bring their own characters or their favorite characters from book to book, I don't know yet because I haven't read them. But one more from this guy, from Fantasy Flight. Let's show that. Fantasy Flight. And then I can get to the Aconite stuff. There you go. Feeders from Within, Peter J. Evans. J? Yes, J. I keep saying it. Double check it. 4 out of 5. If you can find it. And of course, I'll have a link, hopefully, to a copy in the description below. There you go. My question for this video is, would you, or have you or would you play a game based on fiction that you enjoy? Not the other way around, because there is that. Not, would you read fiction based on a game you enjoy? Maybe we'll get to that some other time, but this time, let's keep it focused. Would you play a game based on fiction that you enjoy? Of course, H.P. Lovecraft. I believe the first thing was the Call of Cthulhu role-playing game. I have a copy, a very base copy of that. I've not gotten to play because I just don't have people to play it with. Then came Arkham Horror, and I used to have the first edition. Way back in the day, back in the 80s, I had a first edition. I ended up selling it to a guy at the comic book store I was going to at Bowling Green when I went to Bowling Green State University. And then I had second edition. Now I have third edition. And as I said, I have Elder Sign, which is a really fun dice chucking game. You have these locations that you need to go to, excuse me, and to defeat or complete that location, you have to roll certain symbols on your dice. Each card of the location has lines that show you certain dice symbols. You have to roll those. You complete the location, get rewards. If you fail, there are penalties. And there's always a big bad you're going up against, whether it's Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep or one of those, And if you get to a certain point, they will awaken, and you basically have one last chance to hopefully defeat them. There is one that is Cthulhu? I don't remember if it's Cthulhu or somebody else. When they awaken, you just automatically lose. But some of them you get to fight. So Elder Sign, a lot of fun. Eldritch Horror. So Arkham Horror takes place in Arkham. Although there are expansions that might go to Kingsport and other places. But mainly it takes place in Arkham. You're running around different locations. Eldritch Horror is global, which is why it's more popular with some people. They think it's better than Arkham Horror. You're actually running around the world trying to stop a great old one or an elder god. And they're sort of story-driven a little bit. You always have encounters at locations, and so you read, depending on the location you're at, you read a little bit of sort of story. Oh, you encountered this, or you met this person, or you went into this shop, and then you'll usually roll dice and try to get something that's going to help you. Mansions of Madness, second edition, especially fantastic. It's app-driven. The app will tell you what rooms to put out. You have a bunch of tiles. They might be double-sided, I don't remember. And the app will tell you to put out these tiles. Sometimes it only tells you a few. And put these tokens down. And you pick your investigators, and you're going to move through the mansion. When you get to a token, you can have an encounter with it. You tap the app, the appropriate token on the app, and it tells you what happens. And it'll spawn monsters, and you'll go through a door, and it'll say, okay, now lay down these tiles, because now you've seen this room. And there are puzzles. You might find something that's locked, and you have to figure out the combination. Or there might be the lights have gone out, you need to fix the circuit, and so there's a puzzle for how the wires need to go. And that's all in the app. It's really a lot of fun. Bunch of expansions for that as well, and you just you buy the little box with the expansion that's going to give you the cards, the monsters, the things, tokens, things that you need, and then I think you put a code in to the app, and it adds that stuff to the app itself. A lot of fun. I dig this stuff. While I've been rambling about these, I've been trying to think of any other games based on literature, and I'm sure there are. I just can't think of them off the top of my head. Of course, there's comic book games and all that other stuff, but we won't get into that. So yeah, if it's something I really enjoy, chances are, and I love board games, so chances are if I really like the books, I'm going to check out the game. Well, and again, right off the top of my head, more from Fantasy Flight, Game of Thrones. There's a number of Game of Thrones games. I've never read Game of Thrones. I've never watched Game of Thrones. So I don't have any of those games. And of course, there's plenty of like Lord of the Rings games. I actually do have one of those, another app-driven game. That's a lot of fun, even though I'm not a huge fan of that franchise. So yes, of course, my answer, obviously, yes. If I like the books and a game comes out based on it, chances are I'm going to check that out. There's a game that it's a $200 board game. I would love to have it, and that's Cthulhu Wars, which is kind of the easiest description is Risk with cultists, but there is more to it than that. There's a small version called Cthulhu Wars Duel, which is just a 2-player game, and it has standees, which are little cardboard cutouts of the figures and stuff. The full game, the $200 game, has huge plastic monsters. Like the Cthulhu is like this freaking big, and all the cultists are little plastic figures, and then the elder gods have their own figures, but Cthulhu's the biggest. I would love to have that game. So what is your answer? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. We try to be polite here at the Low Budget Review Show. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. And if you care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is @Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is ErikSmith5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH5757. That's all I've got. This has been the Low Budget Review Show. I have been Eric Smith. And until next time, read more books.